Everybody, good morning, good morning, good morning. We are back. We are back. We are all back from Vegas. We are here. We are alive. We made it. We made it back in one piece. We have Danielle. We have Serge, who's stepping into the limelight today. This is my little Rush reference for my Canadian friend over there. And Joel's off today. Wishing him and the family well right now. Welcome. What's happening, folks? How's everyone feeling? The first week back from Vegas.
I feel great. Usually we're talking about this in the green room, feel like crap after a week of Vegas and, just like meeting a lot of people, traveling.
Shaking babies and kissing hands will get you sick, right?
Yeah, it will. How you feeling?
I love that for you, Serge.
How you feeling, Danielle? You feeling great?
No. You know what it is?
Take it till you make it.
It's just my energy is a little bit depleted. My social battery is a little depleted. 100%. So talking to you two right now is actually providing me some comfort because you guys are like friends, you're family.
Yeah.
So
we're cool.
It requires less effort. Anyone new? I have no tolerance.
Let's riff on that for a moment. First of all, welcome everybody. Welcome to the HR Morning Show. We're back. We're going to talk it all. We're going to talk about the block list today. We're going to talk about Transform, how that was. We're going to recap it, but Transform's in the past. We got some new events coming up. Great guests, David Ellingson, Tara Cooper, and Joey Price. We're going to get to that. But Danielle, let's riff on this. I agree with you. I came back, and aside from being physically drained, because Vegas, all conferences are exhausting. They are, but Vegas, I mean, I looked at my step count, and it was off the charts. You are drained. You are talking to everybody, and I mean, luckily for me, I'm extroverted, but if you're an introvert and you're putting yourself out there, drained. And I said it to my wife and my kids. I'm like, my batteries were drained. And for me, it takes a lot to drain my battery, my social battery. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to engage. I didn't want to do any work. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to curl up in a ball. But then on the flip side of it, right, you look back at it, how many amazing conversations, connections, it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Definitely worth it. And, I think it's also a part of it's like maturing for me. Like, I mean, if you think about it, I spent majority of my career thus far working remotely. And then I've spent another portion of it working by myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's good practice. It's putting the reps in and it's getting FaceTime. I think I've never felt this more, that like in-person time is so crucial for
100%.
business, but it's also crucial for like the soul. It's crucial, to build relationships in person. So I'm really lucky that I got the chance to do that in Vegas, and I was able to be there and speak on a panel. Like, that's crazy. It's a huge conference.
Well, I'm gonna give you some flowers, Danielle. I mean, we met literally a year ago at Transform, right? And we've really built a relationship. And I saw you in your element. You were all over the place. You were shining. You were vibrant. You were doing your thing. And it takes work to do that, and you have to put in the effort. And I mean, I was talking to people at the event who aren't really used to this, and you could kind of tell there were some content creators that were trying to figure it out. And I told them, like, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it until it becomes comfortable. They're like, Adam, how do you just go out there and record? I'm like, dude, a year ago was my first Transform. A year ago was the first time that I did the podcast live, and I put in the reps, and it's not natural. It takes work to do this. So kudos to everybody out there. Everyone who was at Transform, big shout out to Samara, Cal, and the entire team. It is the best conference. There's a vibe, there's an energy, and there's nothing better than the win.
Agreed.
Yeah.
How good was Torrin Ellis? Torrin Ellis was amazing as an MC.
He's such a prolific speaker, like great. Probably the most prolific speaker I've ever seen in person. And I also got a chance to go to his dinner, which was invite only. But it was really incredible to just sit with, a bunch of people who he handpicked to like be in a room, to talk to each other, to have conversation. I feel like it's just such an interesting time. So.
He's great, but here's the other thing too, guys. When you go to these conferences, it's also hard to be like, you can't be everywhere at everything all the time. And something's like, oh, you get like that FOMO. I should have been at this dinner. I should have been at that panel. But you know what? Make it count for the things that you're at. So, guys, 100%. Get involved in the comments here. Joel usually does that, but let's get involved. This show is nothing without you guys. We feed off of it. We need it. we get into it. So let's get into it. Let's get into we got to do this, guys. If you're new to the show, let's drop a little reminder here. We're a podcast. You can catch us on YouTube, catch us on LinkedIn, and here. We're every Tuesday. Follow along Purple Acorn. We have some great updates. The team is putting out some fantastic content. Engage. That's what it's all about. Well, real quick, we talked about Torn. Favorite panels. Like, I did not get to leave. I did not see one panel. I was literally glued to my chair in the expo hall doing my interviews with my folks over at Greenhouse. Shout out to Greenhouse. Those episodes are coming out starting next week. They were incredible. But Serge, what was your favorite panel?
I didn't get a chance to do many panels. I really enjoyed Paradox. Paradox had obviously telling a story about Chipotle and McDonald's and what they're doing on that end. I thought it was fascinating. But actually, the most fun that I had was the Smart Recruiter poker tournament. Going in, I was nervous because I haven't played poker in 15 years. But it was so much fun. Like,
that was so fun.
So chill. They helped us. They guided us through it.
Was a blast.
Adam,
I ended up finishing fourth. I almost hit the top three.
I made it to the second table.
We were at the same table.
It was fun.
That's right.
What
did you do, Danielle? I don't even remember.
Yeah, Danielle.
I purposely folded the game.
She intentionally went all in, and she's like, "I'm out." That's called the Gen Z exit strategy, right? It's called the Gen Z exit, like an Irish exit.
Yeah.
But when you just don't want to be somewhere, you just say, "Fuck it." Sorry, pardon my French. Screw it, and you're like, "I'm all in," and you're like.
But okay. I did think that I was going to win that hand because I actually had a good hand. But it just so happened that I think it was someone was sitting next to you, Serge. I think it was. But anyway, it didn't work. Didn't work for me.
No, Serge was stacking chips over there. I wish I have some pictures.
You did really well.
All right, so big shout out to Smart Recruiters. That was a really, really fun event. I think. Vegas, there's things to do, right? Like there's lots of action, and we're looking forward to the future ones. We'll all be back in Vegas. We'll hit that in the event roundup in a little bit. But before we do that, it's time for headlines. Ooh, what are we talking about today? Who wants to run with this one? Serge, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, let's talk about Meta. It recently came out that Meta has a block list, and basically it's, we used to call it blacklist, right? Mm-hmm. What they're doing is they have a secret list of employees who are permanently ineligible to hire. It's a little bit different than typical do not rehire list, because this could be based on policy violation, performance.
Yeah, some people get fired for a good reason, right?
Yeah, some people get fired for a good reason, but it recently came out and it's caused a little bit of stir, especially in Silicon Valley, as far as, is this a common thing? Do most companies do this? And is it legit? Like, can they do this? What's your thoughts, like, Danielle? Like, should this be something that employees should be concerned? Am I on a block list or a blacklist?
I mean, if you're on a block list, you probably are at a company that you don't want to be at anymore, right? Like from an employee perspective. And I mean, I've heard of blacklists and whatnot. I feel like it makes sense. If I feel like probably Rippling has a blacklist and Deal has a blacklist.
Yeah, I think at this point they're gonna have the spy versus spy blacklist.
They're probably gonna have that. I mean, there's such good content about that whole thing. That
was funny.
But yeah, I feel like it makes sense. Like you're facing, I mean, I feel like a company that does have these lists, like it could sound bad. It might hurt your reputation. It might have like legal risks or like employer branding challenges. But at the same time, it's like if someone deserves to be blocklisted, then it is what it is. Like, I don't know.
It's gonna happen.
I would be curious to hear what gets you on that list in the first place.
So here's the deal. Here's the deal. It is what it is. There's always going to be back talk. There's always going to be, reference checks behind the back. People are going to be asking. That's what's going to happen. In a lot of workplaces, a lot of industries, it's a small group of people that do the same thing at different companies, and your reputation follows you, right? And you have to manage your reputation tightly. And listen, sometimes you can control how people think about you, and other times you can't. So there's going to be unofficial blacklist, whatever you want to call it. That's just been going around for a long time. It's a nature of the business, and you can't do anything about it except try to do your best to manage your own reputation. Now, where it does come into play, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, otherwise I probably wouldn't be on this show. But where it comes in from a legal perspective is slander and liability, right? Like if someone's preventing you from getting a job or interviewing and they're talking smack about you and somehow you found out about it and you have proof, say you have a copy of an email or a copy of a phone conversation or something, that's a different story. Now, I'm not an expert, so I can't comment on that. And listen, it sucks, right? Like if you left a bad taste in someone's mouth for some reason, that's not like, hey, I didn't do anything. They just didn't like me. And that's affecting you getting a job. That sucks. But a formal, listen, there are do not hire lists, right? There are certain reasons someone might have, like a fireable offense, right? There might have been discriminate. They might have done something, right? Like, that's one thing. But performance-based, I mean, it's a slippery slope. What do you guys think of the comments here? And producing team, let's get some comments up in the chat here.
So I don't think hiring is a right, so I don't have an issue with it. Like you think about it, it's a business decision.
Correct.
If a company believes that a former employee is not a good fit, whether it's like cultural or just past conflict, maybe they're just a pain in the ass to deal with.
Right.
It's their choice to not hire you, and there's not a lot you can do. I think where it gets maybe a little bit trickier is government type work, right?
Correct.
Like I think if you're discriminating in that sense. But then it goes to like, what happens if this was 10 years ago and you were an ass and now like you've grown, you're a better employee? Is it fair to still be on that list? I think you're kind of screwed. I don't think there's a way around it because you wouldn't even know you're on that list. Right?
That's the thing too. You mean you will in 9 out of 10 cases, you are not even going to know. You are not even going to know. But back channeling happens all day long. What's Greg saying there? Yes, I know external recruiters have had me on their block list and will not put me forward to their clients. Well, yeah, I'll tell you straight up, it happens in recruiting. I'll give you a prime example too. If I have a candidate that I've worked with in the past and that person has done something egregious during an interview, or for some reason I don't feel like they're qualified, or if they falsified information on their resume or during an interview process, of course I'm going to blacklist them. Yeah. Of course I am, because why? That's my business. That's my money. Same thing as you said, Serge. Why am I going to put them forward on something? Because that's my reputation. That's my product, right? That's my quality of product there. It's real. And you just got to move on and find another recruiter to work with.
Similarly, it's like you don't want someone representing your brand who, as an employee, who isn't, acting right.
I would love to know how they manage these lists. Like, is it somewhere on a Google Drive?
It's word of mouth. It's word of mouth. It's word of mouth. It's word of mouth. And listen, like for me, speaking as a recruiter, like when I see certain names come across my plate, or if I see people that have just been applying a million times to things and like they're just not representing themselves truthfully, or let's call it what it is, maybe they're just not a great candidate, I'm not going to put them in front of a client.
There's also like personal bias. Like there might be someone who just rubs you the wrong way and you just don't like them, and then you prevent them from ever getting hired at your company. Like that's also a possibility. It's a very human thing.
It is human.
That's not fair.
We want to hear
in reality.
It's not fair. I'm not saying it's fair, but it happens for sure.
Yeah, but like an official. Well, there is a thing, and Margaret brought this up here. Let's pull up Margaret's comment in. And this is very true. I've seen this before. I have seen you could tag somebody in certain ATS at DNH, do not hire. I've seen this before. It's a real thing, and I think it's perfectly. I got to be careful with this one, right? Like you want to give somebody a second chance, but in the same breath, like do not hire. Margaret, what's a reason for someone to be a do not hire legally? Like, could you because if you're putting something in the ATS. That's written, right? It's in the scribe.
I was actually going to ask both of you, has someone done something that you've seen that like would put them on a do not hire list?
Well, I have seen in the ATS exactly how Margaret describes it. Like bad interview, they did this, and this. They didn't show up on time. They didn't
no-show, ghosting.
Interview. Yeah, there's plenty of situations. I don't think I've come across a situation where, well, actually, probably informally be like, don't hire this dude, or but like it's rare that it happens or that I come across it.
Pull in Greg's comment here too. Totally agree. With the reputation and results in Latin America, there's almost like a legend that these lists are somewhere in every industry. It's true. There is, and your reputation precedes you, and it's true. So what Greg is saying here, it's unethical and unprofessional. I agree. I agree to an extent, but there's no way. If I'm interviewing Danielle and and Serge works with me, and I knew that Danielle worked with Serge in a previous role, Of course, I'm going to go over to Serge and say, hey, what was it like to work? But that's biased because that's only one opinion. And me as a recruiter or hiring manager, it wouldn't be fair to base my judgment based on Serge's opinion of Danielle. You could use it as a data point, but it can't be your final end-all decision point.
It happens, though. I think this is where HR hates back channeling, and I get it. It is unethical, but the challenge, it happens all the time to exactly what you just said, Adam. Like, someone that's worked with them. Obviously, you're going to try to find out as much as you can because, like, we are trying to reduce the risk of every hire. And if there's information that would be really pertinent to that person, of hiring that person, I want to know. But to your point, you shouldn't make a decision based on it. But it does happen, and it happens outside of HR in my experience. It happens a lot more with hiring managers.
Yeah.
They've worked with someone that's worked with someone, and they don't understand the possible ramifications of leveraging that information.
That's so true.
Right?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and we could keep talking about it, but I think we made it pretty clear. This is a gray area. Like many things in hiring, this is a gray area. There's no cut and dry. I think that, like, if you have a case and you could figure out some kind of slander, liability, that's one thing. Otherwise, do better.
Do better.
Do better. Manage your reputation. Don't suck. Right? Like, don't do dumb shit. Sorry, like that's the deal here. Let's keep it moving. It's time for Event Roundup. Let's keep it moving, folks.
All right, we are back with the event roundup now that we are done with Transform. Although someone did in the comments ask how Transform was overall. So maybe we'll get to that question.
Amazing.
Yeah. Overall, it was amazing. Like if you're even thinking about it next year, don't think about it. Book your flight, book your ticket as soon as it comes out. Take advantage of the discounted hotel rate. Stay at the Wynn. Wait, Serge, pro tip. How was it staying in Treasure Island for folks that are budget conscious like yourself?
Treasure Island was amazing, actually. The rooms were clean. It was a 10-minute walk to the Wynn. No complaints on my end.
Were the rooms new?
They were new. Yeah, it was a new room. The last time I stayed at the Luxor, and I had a massive puddle in the middle of the room.
I did not like that.
Movie. So they just put like towels over it. And
it's horrific.
I don't stay at the Luxor, but Treasure Island was
not a fan.
Well, I did stay at the Luxor for HR Tech, and they had me in the new tower, and honestly, my room was perfectly fine.
Was it good? Yeah.
It was perfect. It was perfectly fine. But listen, you do what you got to do, right? The Wynn is not cheap.
I stayed at the Fontainebleau, and it was actually like very budget conscious because they had some sort of like 40% off for your first time deal. Ooh. And it was beautiful. It felt like a museum or a mausoleum, whichever one. And the rooms were gorgeous. It was a little bit far, so I would Uber every day. But I honestly loved so much being there. Yeah. And I found out that Transform 2027 is going to be at the Fontainebleau.
2027? They already booked? Really?
Yeah.
So next year it's back at the Wynn one more time?
And the following year, it's at the Fontainebleau.
The Wynn is beautiful, though. I think it's probably my favorite hotel
by far
in Vegas.
It is. My only complaint is that the food is too far.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, yeah. I mean, the expo centers are not exactly center of the casino, right? So you're gonna have to deal with that. Well, that's one kind of cool thing about HR Tech in the Mandalay. They have that food court right there when you walk out. So that was actually a good location.
Yeah.
Anyway, event roundup. What do we got going on?
Event roundup. So
we digress.
We have this event, Trust, Transparency, and Amplifying Your Network Through Community Power, hosted by CollabWork. So we have, Jan Ryan. Essentially, there's this event hosted by Consult and Collaborate. And then there's another event about how do you reach passive talent that isn't browsing job boards. Joining CEO and founder Summer Delaney, who's a friend of the show.
Yeah.
And Ryan Afalter with Rogue Hire for a live conversation on how community-powered hiring is helping healthcare TA teams build stronger pipelines and better connections. Is this the same event? Am I wrong? Yeah. And then, so this is March 27th, so
next week? Oh, this week. Yeah, Thursday.
1 p.m. Eastern. insert, or is this, oh yeah, it's this week. Wow, guys, time is flying. And yeah, it's free event.
Awesome. Good stuff. And Danielle, what do you got coming up? You're going back to Vegas.
I'm going back to Vegas very soon. I have ERE, which is really fun. I've never been, but I've been in touch with the ERE folks for literally 5 years.
It's a good squad.
I'm excited. It's me, Joel, a lot of friends of the show. We'll all be in Vegas. I'm going to be creating some really fun content. I'm going to hire a videographer.
Nice.
Do some fun stuff. Yeah, it's good. I was talking to one of the other speakers and we were joking, like, maybe we should do interviews while we're on the drop ride at the Stratosphere.
Ooh, now we're getting fancy.
That'd be fun. That'd be
fun. And then we have a couple more events coming up throughout June, and then there's a couple of summer events going on, and then back in May.
Unleash is coming up. Already booked my hotel. Talking about hotels,
wow.
I booked the Flamingo, which is like a really walking distance from it. $49 a night. You cannot beat that.
Wow.
I've stayed at the Flamingo a couple times for every Unleash. So last year, talking about the Stratosphere, I actually jumped off the Stratosphere.
Oh, wow.
It was one of the scariest experiences I've ever done. So looking for a thrill, go do that. Jump off the Stratosphere.
Wow.
I love it here. So that's the event roundup. And guys out there in the comments, if you have any questions about these events, please ping us in the DMs. We're more than happy to talk about our experiences. If you have questions about how to champion to your leadership to say, hey, I want to go to one of these events, hit us up. We're more than happy to give you a couple of pointers to help justify your trip, because there's nothing better than being together in real life and learning and connecting and networking and absorbing information. That is the event roundup. It's time for our friends over at Smart Recruiters. We're going to switch it up a little bit this week. We're going to different day. First of all, Alen, good to see you. It was great to see you last week and hang out.
It was fun. We had a good week.
It was great. I am feeling, I'm at like 83% social and physical battery right now. If I'm going to dollar cost average it, where are you at?
I'll be honest with you. I'm at a good 40%.
Oof.
And I was exhausted yesterday. I don't know why yesterday is what hit me. I think it was panic. I'm actually I'm doing this show, and then I am hopping on an airplane in a couple of hours for a conference in Budapest.
Wow. You were just all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe I'm feeling a little. I'm preemptively drained.
Well, I mean, are you a plane sleeper? Are you good at sleeping on a plane?
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think
you have to learn how to do that. I have a whole routine. Yeah, you have to learn how to do that. I have when exactly to take the sleeping pill with the red wine, when to put the sleep mask on, and then to arrive.
Well, that's interesting too, because I've seen some really cool things in this age of AI, and this is kind of segueing into what we're talking about here. With ChatGPT, you could put in exactly where you're flying from, what the itinerary is, where you're landing, and it will give you the optimal times to get the most sleep. You may think, hey, I'm going to get on that plane and knock myself out, and it's not going to set you up for success when you land. It may be better to stay up for a little bit and get your body optimized, but that's the beauty of AI, because it knows how to do all those things.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? Use it. Use it to help you.
There's another cool thing out there I've been getting a lot of ads for called Fly Kit also, which gives you, preemptive nutrients and sleep aids and melatonin based on your travel duration, how long the flight is, and it's all customized. So check that out. Unofficial sponsor, but if they want to sponsor also, we'll get into it. So
what was that one called?
Fly Kit. Check out Fly Kit. So we're going to switch things up from our normal global report today, and we're gonna move into a new segment. We're going to keep it fresh here, and we're kicking off the All In for AI series, and this is conversations about what it really takes to make AI work in hiring. And Alina's with us, and she's going to talk about why so many teams are spinning their wheels with AI. I mean, we just got back from Transform, and I went around to a bunch of booths, and I see, did you change your company name and just slap an AI onto the end of it? But we're going to really understand what it means. And spoiler alert, it's not about having the most features. It's about knowing how to use them and connect the dots. So let's dig in. I want to talk about being street smart about AI. And there's a lot of buzz out there, and we need to decipher it and really understanding how the tech connects to the real workflows, the real people, and the real decisions. So let's get into it, Ellen.
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges is that really what sparked this for me was having conversations at Transform. As I was talking to practitioners and people who are out there trying to figure out what to do with AI, and I'm listening to vendors talk about this. Listen, we're doing a lot of conversation about features and functionality, but there's very few little conversation happening about what it's really going to take to make that work within your organization. Just having AI in and of itself is not a panacea, right? That's not going to suddenly make you more effective. In fact, if you have no idea where to actually insert it into your workflow, if you are not proactively thinking about how you're going to need to redesign your processes, how you're going to need to rethink about the people who are inside your organization and how are you leveraging them. I've we've spent a lot of time talking about this idea that we're going to humanize the tech, but at the end of the day, I think what that's really about is we've got to figure out how to create experiences that work for humans.
Right.
And that's a process design question. That's not a tech question.
No, it's process, right? Like it's like you could give me a brand new Ferrari but you don't know if I could drive it. You haven't even asked me if I know how to drive stick shifts. I have no idea. You're giving me this shiny new tool and you're not giving me the training and everything I need. Or even asking me, Adam, do you really need a Ferrari? No, I don't need a Ferrari to drive around in the suburbs. I really don't.
That's right. For what I'm doing, I don't need a Ferrari. What I really need is a really good, I'm not a really good, not a Ford Compass. That's not going to do it, but a good tool, right? But I think if we can, and that challenge is we're not asking those questions. We're not having that dialogue and conversation. And the second part to it is that we've got so many vendors out there, and it's not their fault because I'm one as well.
Or is it?
That are having conversations. They're saying, I have this, or you can do this thing, or you can do that thing, but not explaining what it takes to make that tech work on your tech stack, right?
You can't, right? And so many of them are they're not, the problem right now is I think a lot of the tools, and keep me straight here, are trying to solve for volume and not quality when we should be solving for quality over volume. That's volume is the X factor that's just market driven based on the economy and the current supply and demand issue out there right now.
It 100% is. Right. And as you're starting to think about these technologies you're putting in place, I'm going to give a great example. I use this one all the time when I'm having this conversation with people. I say, listen, who's heard they need a chat bot? Just about everybody. I need one. We should all have one.
Raise your hand.
But do you know that they're not all built on the same tech? And depending on the infrastructure that they're built on, they're going to work differently inside your ecosystem, right? If you're in this vision that you want to go to agentic, we've all been talking about agentic, the coolest thing in the planet, right? We're suddenly going to have these bots, they're going to take actions for us and et cetera. But it doesn't just work that way, right? You have to have a tool that actually allows for actions to be taken in it.
Right. The dots have to be connected. You can't just have the front end in the machine and not the back end operating.
That's right. You can't just suddenly go, oh, this is fabulous. This thing's immediately going to take some generative content from me and immediately pump out and do all of my work for me. It does not work that way. You have to have really 3 levels of
let's get into these 3 levels. Let's lift up the hood of this Ferrari and understand what are those 3 things, layers that need to work together. What are those 3 tech elements that need to work together?
Right. So at its root and foundation, everything works off of data. Data in, data out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out. You have to have a good data layer, and that means your data has to connect to each other. Fundamentally, here's the difference, though, is we're evolving our tech solutions. When we used to hear the question data layer, we used to have all these conversations about how am I going to get that data to talk to each other? How am I going to normalize that data? How am I going to make sure that data is understandable across multiple systems? That's always been the challenge with integrations and et cetera. So here's the good news I can tell everybody. As we're evolving from a tech story, you no longer have to worry so much about your data being structured in very specific ways or normalizing that data in very specific ways. That's where these new technologies like generative AI and LLMs are going to help you leverage that data layer in a much easier way. So that's the good news, but you still need it. So you still have to have data coming in. You still have to get the information. And then the second thing you need is you need a way to take action against that data, meaning you need to have workflow automations. You need to have the ability to trigger actions in purposeful ways to support your process, right? So again, that's kind of going to that middle layer that says, I've got my data, and then in the middle, I have to have the thing that allows me to take actions against that data, right? So that is automation, triggering automation workflows, and et cetera. And then the top layer is the glossy layer that we all see. We think is the thing that's going to be the nirvana. And by the way, it is useful. That's the experience layer. That's the thing that I interact with, right? So when you go into ChatGPT today, you're all looking, most of us are looking at the experience layer, meaning I can go in and ask a question and it does some stuff. I don't know what it's doing back out there, right? But ChatGPT isn't just uniformly just taking your information and digesting it.
No, you have to give it action. You have to give it commands.
That's right. And it takes those commands. Those commands only work if it has the automation trigger to execute those commands. And then it has to be tied into those data sources. Now, ChatGPT is tied into the larger internet and a variety of things. That's why it has so much data.
You have to have the right people also, right? Who know how to do this. You have to hire right. You have to hire right. Like you're using the tool. You have to bring in the right people here. And if not, it's just there. It's just like a shiny object you're not using. You just bought that beautiful dress or suit, just sitting in your closet, and you're not using it right.
Yeah, it looks like gold. You're so fabulous. It looks wonderful. But it doesn't get you to that next step, right? Yeah. So here's the root of that, though. You have to be able to answer some questions to make all of that work for you. So on your data layer, on your automation layer, and even a little bit on your experience layer, to understand what is the thing that you need it to do in the first place, right? You're not going to be able to, none of us are building, an OpenAI LLM infrastructure that can be basically used for anything, for any purpose, any reason, right? None of us have the funds or the capabilities to go off and create an architecture like that. So if I have to have a targeted architecture, what are the processes I need it to do? What are those workflow integration layers that I need to have in the middle? What data do I need to support those? And then I can start to talk about how I put something on top of that.
And doesn't it start with thinking about the outcomes first? Like old school strategy, start with the outcome. What problem are we trying to solve and work backwards from it? And I think so many folks are reversing it with the AI thinking, oh, we got this new tool. It's going to solve everything for us. Let's just let it run. Let's just plop it on top of our current system and let that cat out of the bag. Let's see what happens.
Let's just go and do this. And I think that's part of the open question we're going to see over the course of the next year or so as people start to take we used to have that question of do you go best of breed or do you go fully integrated, right? And that was the question in the tech stack. Now I think the question is going to be, do you have an AI insert or add-on onto your system, or do you have an integrated AI built throughout your system? And I think there's going to be pluses and minuses to both. And it's going to depend on the outcomes you're trying to achieve and what sort of tech strategy you want to put in place to move you forward. But you have to start thinking about that now. This is why, for me, starting to have these conversations is really important, because now is the time to start thinking about what your strategy is here. This is the one moment in time. I am actually
one moment in time.
One moment in time. I'm getting ready to go to Budapest.
Just one moment in time. I smell the Broadway show version of our segment.
I am going to sing Frozen from the stage. No, I'm not. But I will say this. This is probably the first time in close to over 100 years we have the opportunity to redesign the entire hiring process.
Let's fix it.
This is it, guys. We finally have the capabilities and the technology to be able to do things that we might imagine would be best, but we've created this Frankenstein of process.
Yep.
A bunch of add-on components that are workarounds because the tech didn't work right, or we didn't have the right people, or sorry. This is the moment. So my ask to everybody is to start thinking about this, pause for a moment and say, if I could do it based on everything I know about people and how they operate and getting people connected to jobs, what would I do differently? And design for that.
Yes. Run in parallel, right? Like carve out the time. Yes, you have your day-to-day that you need to keep things moving, but really think about it strategically. If you're a leader in this space, if you're a practitioner in this space, really understand the technology. And again, start from the problem you're trying to solve, start with the goals you're trying to achieve, and work backwards from it versus saying, oh, I have these tools here. Here's what they can do. No. Think about what the core that we're trying to fix here. So, Lynn, let's talk a little bit about this series. What folks have to look forward to coming up. What's it all about?
So we're gonna start breaking this down. We're gonna go bit by bit and start talking about a lot of the things we discussed here today, but go into a little bit more depth. Let's talk about how we start with the problem statement. How do we start to redesign that experience? How do we start to lay that out? How do we start to frame up what tech is actually going to support that experience? What are the questions you need to be asking as a practitioner or somebody who is designing your tech stack or making recommendations against your tech stack? For your processing, what are the questions you need to be asking to build this going forward? And so we're going to do it in a kind of a step-by-step process. We're going to take the next few months here and hopefully have some fun in the conversation.
Yeah, we're going to keep this one going. So traveling to Budapest, are you back next week for the show? Are we doing it remotely from Budapest?
Oh, I'm back. I'm there. I'm going to go talk in Hungary and I'm going to be back home on Friday night.
Wow, that's a quick turnaround.
It is.
That's a lot going on there. Well, we wish you a safe travel overseas over there. Go do your thing. We want to thank you. We want to thank Smart Recruiters, and looking forward to this segment, folks. And if you like this segment, please get involved here. Mm-hmm. Jump into the comments. I want to thank Marie Roker Jones and Trent's up in the comments here. We're going to pull those comments in and let's keep the conversation going, because this is where we're at right now in the industry. The more knowledge we could share, the better everyone's going to be collectively. Let's all make a difference and fix this broken thing.
Exactly.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Ellen.
It's Mr. Joey Price. Welcome to the show, Joey.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Joey, you are the CEO of Jumpstart HR and the author of the upcoming book, HR Coming. So, The Power of HR, and it's coming out soon. When is it coming out exactly, Joey?
Well, the update is it's out now. It just released today
Oh,
in
it's
the
out now?
US. And in the UK, it's been out since March 3rd. So super excited that I get to celebrate this whole month of helping more HR professionals learn about the power that they have within the HR department to affect change and build the business case for what we do.
Super impressive. I'm really curious about you, Joey. So tell us a little bit more of what has been your journey to get where you are at today.
Well, I'll spare you the 5-hour journey, and I'll distill it in about 30 seconds or so. I am an HR practitioner by trade, but in undergrad, I studied kinesiology, which is exercise science. And so I thought I was going to travel the world, help athletes perform at a high level on ball fields all across the world and win trophies. But then I hit freshman chemistry, and I realized, I don't think I'm going to be taping up athletes for the rest of my life. I've got to figure out what I want to do. And I realized that I love helping people, love making a difference. And I didn't want a routine, mundane sort of job. And so some family friends were like, hey, you want to work in a corporate environment? Why not consider the role in HR? And I was like, that sounds great. What the heck is HR? Because at that time, I'd only worked at retail jobs or at my university. You never really interface with the HR department. You just interface through a manager. So long story short, I made a pivot. I went to graduate school, got my master's in human resource management, got a certification, went through from HR assistant to interim HR director at various organizations, and I started my company, Jumpstart HR. And over the past 15 years of leading that, what I realized is that instead of helping athletes perform on ball fields, I help employees perform well in boardrooms. And so that's always been the red thread of helping people succeed. And that's why I wrote the book, The Power of HR, to help HR pros learn how to have that same sort of strategic passion for the business case and the love of what we do. And that's how I got here.
I love it. So 2025 has already off to a great start. So in January, Jumpstart HR acquired Aspect 43 from friend of the show, Sarah White.
Yes.
Maybe I'm always curious about this. Like, give me a little bit of inside baseball. How did it all come together, and why did you feel the timing and the circumstances were right to do this acquisition?
Yeah, I just stated that the passion that I have is for creating great performance at work. I've got a personal mantra of I want people to be more excited about Monday than they are about Friday because I want people to love their jobs. And that may seem, pie in the sky, not attainable, but if I can help move the needle and create a team that moves the needle one step further to people actually enjoying where they work, then I think I've had a life well lived. And what Sarah has built through Aspect 43, and Sarah and I have been friends for many years, and I've admired her work. She's one of the smartest people I know. But what she's built is an organization that specifically helps HR and TA technology vendors level up their relationship with the HR practitioner and the buyer and build tools that HR people love and that employees love as well. And it was just a perfect fit for what we're doing on the consulting side at Jumpstart of creating great workplaces and going into the technology arena and having that same passion and footprint and working with Tammy to continue to improve outcomes for HR tech vendors and their relationship with HR pros. Because a funny thing, I've always seen this in sales calls and speaking on stages and getting to know HR pros and technologists in this field is HR speaks one language, but technology speaks another.
Mm-hmm.
And there really isn't that translator to bring the two together. But that translator exists in the work that we do at Aspect 43 with some of the content and the marketing and the analysis work that we do. We help build that bridge of improving the practitioner experience and making technology vendors more successful and profitable at their mission.
So how does the acquisition happen in the sense, does Sarah reach out to you being like, hey, I'm looking to sell this company, or you're like, hey, this looks really cool. I think it'd be a perfect fit for my company. Let's talk about an acquisition. How does that work?
Yeah. So like I said, Sarah and I, we've been friends and have known each
Yeah.
other for a while. And there just was a moment in time where she'd mentioned, hey, I am there's something in my horizon, and I'm at a point where I'm looking at evaluating what my future looks like and what that looks like without leading Aspect 43. And so I've always been passionate about what we do, and I've had some momentary experiences in the analyst rooms as a thought leader influencer for various technology vendors in this space. And I just said, hey, maybe it's crazy, but what would it look like if Aspect joined the Jumpstart family? And I'll do whatever it takes, mutual evaluation, team members meeting team members, and just getting a feel of, is this a place that Aspect 43 could call home? And so obviously I only have my lens into the process. But from that standpoint, it was meeting with Sarah and Tammy and evaluating the business and just seeing where I could continue to take the baton and lead it forward. And so that's kind of how it came about in a nutshell, was just a more intentional focus of getting to know one another and seeing if I was the right person to lead it and if this team was the best place for Aspect 43 to land.
I love to hear what happens in the back room of every acquisition, but I do want to dive into some of the challenges that we're seeing in the workforce right now. I was listening to a recent podcast you had with Lori Rudiman, and one of the things that you talked about is staying in a job that you hate isn't the right move.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to that and I'm like, okay, well, we all have bills to pay sometimes, and it becomes really challenging as a person out in the workforce. What's your advice for those folks that just feel stuck in their current role and they're unsure what the next step should be?
I love that question because it's something that I've had to face and I've had to walk through. I remember being at organizations where I'm literally using my lunchtime every day to call my mentor and walk around the office outside and say, you got to get me out of here. You got to find a place for me. And what I've learned is that those moments of trial and tension are the best times to look inside yourself and say, what are my motivations for being here? What kind of legacy do I want to build in my career? Is this the right path for me to do it? Because there are some moments where it's important for you to, you know, level it up a bit and step up, right? So maybe you're not giving your best. Maybe you're not performing as well as you could. But then there are true times where you need to step out. and you need to find an organization that maybe you believe in the values a little bit more strongly. You'll have opportunities for growth and development a little bit more strongly, and you'll have leadership and mentorship on the team that will allow you to grow. And so it's a deeply personal question for everyone, but having that introspective conversation is what I would say first. And after you've done that work to say, I'm unhappy with this place because there's no room to grow, that's one conversation.
Yeah.
And the other is, I'm unhappy with this place because maybe I haven't given my best. That's another conversation. And to that, I'd say, give it another 3 months and reassess. But if you're ready to go, get a game plan and make it happen. Because ultimately, you're the only person responsible for your career success at the end of the day.
I think one of the challenges that we all have is self-awareness. Like some have it better than others, but then trying to figure out, okay, exactly what am I good? What do I feel passionate about? And sometimes passion just comes out of being good at something. Sometimes you have to do the reps, you have to do the role, you have to suffer through maybe things that you don't like as much to figure out what you're really good at. But do you have any advice for anyone that's trying to figure out how do I look into myself to see what my real passions are? Like, how do I discover that?
Yeah, I love that question, Serge, because you're not just going to get it having a cup of coffee, sitting at the coffee shop, and just reflecting.
Yeah,
You're going to need some help. You're going to need some guidance, some coaching, someone who can speak into who you are and ask the right probing questions. If you don't have that person in your life who can be a mentor or a developer, the best way I would start is with personality assessments. Now, I
okay.
know they may be taboo and some people love them, some people don't, but I have found that tools like DISC assessment, strength finders, uh, Lencioni's work that he has, these will help you jumpstart your introspection because you're going to take the assessments and they're going to read you just as much as you read them. So I would say start with the assessments and then get out and network with your peers. One thing that I found early on in my career is that attending conferences was one of the best things that I could do for my career because
Agree.
I realized that there was life outside of the HR bubble that I was living. And so I knew that I wanted this profession. I just didn't know what was possible. And so getting out and meeting other people, that gives you a great opportunity for you to say, you know what? I'm on the right track. I'm just not in the right place. And you can figure out the next steps you need to take to make that happen.
Fantastic advice. So, your book, The Power of HR: How to Make an Organizational Impact as People Professional, is out today.
Yeah.
So, everyone go cop it, get it, read it. I'm sure it's a fantastic read. It's on my to read list. Who should be buying this book, Joey?
Well, it's primarily for senior and mid-level HR professionals who feel stuck. They've been trying to answer the question of how do I prove the business case of my initiatives? How do I get the ear and influence of my fellow executive leaders? And quite frankly, how do I level up in the impact that I have for the team at large? So it's primarily for them. But we also shape this, and my publisher Cullen page was amazing in helping me do this, but we've shaped it as a textbook. So for professors of human resources programs at the bachelor's or master's level, this is one of the first books, and what I think one of the best books to evaluate the post-COVID way of doing HR and evaluating some of the things like artificial intelligence and the rise of emotional intelligence being incredibly important and mental health being important while maintaining the core principles that strategy matters and people matter. So it's for the person who's made it and feels stuck, and it's for the person who wants to teach the next generation of how to get where they want to go without having some of those hurdles and obstacles that maybe you and I went through in our career journeys.
So every author that I've ever interviewed or talked to have told me a little bit about their journey about writing a book and found that one of the most challenging things they've done in their career. What was your experience? How was the experience of writing a book?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm like every other author.
Yeah,
Writing it was the hardest part.
yeah,
I believe I had a target of a number that I don't even think I wrote that much in all my 4 years of undergrad, but I had the assignment, and I hit it. But one of the most fascinating things that I discovered about writing the book and thinking about the book and how I wanted it to go is, it's really like creating a film. It's like creating a movie. It's like you're a director of a movie, and you've got to think about plot. You've got to think about the pacing. You've got to think about how am I introducing the reader as the hero in the journey and me as the guide. And so, as much as it's about putting words on paper, I really spent a lot of time thinking about if I were to pick this up in the airport, or if I were to pick this up in the university, or if I were at a trade show and this book were on the wall, and I just had 30 seconds to read it, I want every 30 seconds snippet to lead me to say, "Oh, I got to read this," or "I got to learn more about this. I think this is what I want to hear." So I thought it was like creating a movie.
Okay. That's a perspective I've never heard before, but I do understand how that makes sense. So would you do it again? Would
I
you write
would.
another book?
I would.
Yeah, would you?
I would love to see this one go into, second edition, third edition, and so on. But I told my wife, I was like, I think I've got 2 or 3 more books in me, and then from there we'll see where it goes.
Well, keep writing. I'm sure this book is going to bring a lot of value to HR folks, managers in organizations. I think there's a ton of value to it for it. So, Joey, what's if anyone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, best way is to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's not hard to find me. I've got my picture up on my profile. Company websites are jumpstart-hr.com and aspect43.com to learn more about the way that we're creating great workplaces for as many people as we can. And on social medias, I'm Joey V. Price HR.
Joey, keep killing it. Love what you're doing. We're a big fan here at the HR Morning Show. Thank you for joining us this morning. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, sir.
Morning, beautiful people again. So this week on the weather, I came across a new term called task masking. Never heard it before, so let me break it down for you. So what's happening? Employees are pretending to be busy. So they're loud typing, having fake meetings, rushing around the office, all to appear productive rather than being actually productive. So here's the argument from employees why they feel they need to do this. So many employees say they're not avoiding work, they're either finished their tasks or not given meaningful work. According to them, old school metrics focus on hours worked. It just doesn't work anymore. Being present doesn't equal being productive. So they're trying to figure out ways to pretend to work. Although I agree that being present doesn't mean that you're being productive, but I have to admit, this new trend or task masking is complete BS. So, really, you have nothing to do. So, you have to fake work instead of actually finding something that you could do that could be productive. I feel there's always something to do. I don't know. Throughout my career, lack of task has not been a challenge at all. And I've never heard a really successful person come out and say, "Oh, there's just wasn't enough to do. I'm bored at work." That rarely happens. So, my forecast for this week, if you feel you need to be task masking because it's not meaningful work or whatever, and my advice is to go find your job slash career. In the meantime of finding that job, actually try to be productive. You might actually enjoy it and see your career and skills progress. That's the weather. Let's get back to Danielle and Adam.
I've definitely phoned it in certain parts of a job.
I
I
think we
mean, try
all.
to look busy. I think we all have, but whose fault is that? It's your manager's fault.
Yeah.
Is it your manager's fault? Is it
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
I mean, because you don't want to be the guy or gal who's like, "Hey, I don't have anything to do right now."
Well,
Yeah.
you can always find something to do. I think about the
I used to put paper clips together and see how long I can make a paperclip chain.
No, honestly, this is why like going to the office and showing face pisses me off so much,
Yeah.
because it's like most of the much of the time, and you have to you have to say that you've done this. Come on, Serge. Like,
Come on.
you're at the office and you're like, "Oh, I don't really have anything to do, so I'm just going to shop, or I'm just going to like shop for groceries, or I'm just going
set
to
my
like."
fantasy football team.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's or create a fantasy football league or a March Madness, bracket, like whatever. But I think everyone does it, and I think it's the fault of the manager. I think I literally just had a friend text me and be like, "I'm so bored at work. What do I do?" And they're not even working in an office. So I feel like it's, I agree, Serge, with some of your advice of like, okay, look for other jobs, look for something to do, upskill, like, go into like the AI stuff, like
Yeah,
whatever you have
make
to
yourself
do.
future-proof yourself. Make
Yeah,
yourself invaluable.
100%. But I
Listen,
think, yeah. Go
there's
ahead.
ebbs and flows in every workday, right? Like in every job, there's ebbs and flows also, depending on no matter what your profession
every
is,
year.
right? Like, so how do you use that time productively, right? Like, and really understanding, hey, I'm on the company's dime. Now, listen, you need to obviously mind your mental health and take advantage of those dips to recharge, but it doesn't mean just sitting around twiddling your thumbs. Find ways to upskill, uplearn, right?
Well, I think of the days that I worked retail and worked
Which
at
store
like
did you work at, first of
I
all?
worked at a cell phone, so like the phone company or cell.
Hello?
Yes, exactly, selling cell phones, and it wasn't always busy. And I remember like my
Hello? Can I interest you in this phone?
exactly, that was me at 19. Killed it too. It was a fantastic job. This was like almost at the start of the cell phone revolution,
I had
right?
a
Like,
beeper.
yeah, it was amazing. But I think about the times that my coworkers would do nothing when it wasn't busy. I was cleaning the whole kiosk, the whole store.
Mm,
Just had to find something to do, and I'm having a hard time understanding how you can be bored at work, because I just look at what's on my list of things to do,
Yeah.
and if I had
get it
time
done.
that I would get to, that I just run out of time. Like, I can't work 80 hours a week. So I'm like, I'm bored at work. I'm like, how could you add value to your manager? I don't agree
Right.
it's the manager's fault. I think
Mm.
managers have a lot of employees they
We'll
manage.
pull. We'll pull.
Well,
There's a comment over here. Task masking. Pull this comment in. Task masking is so much related to goal setting. Is an HR concern if goal setting has not happened. Right. I think it's an organization. It starts with the
yeah.
organization. You have
I
goals.
will say I've been in organizations, like one of the best experiences I've had working was, they sat me down at like 2 weeks in after I was onboarded, and my boss was like, write down a list of, 5 to 10 things you want to learn in the next 6 months,
Yeah.
not related to your current role, related to, networking or the industry or other parts of the business you're interested in. And I did that. And then we came back together like a week later, and he helped me. He was like, "Okay, like I'm going to connect you with this person." And we went through the goal list. And then 3 months in, we went through the goal list, and we're like, "Okay, what, we reviewed it. What have we done? What changed? Let's update, let's add, let's take away." And then 6 months in, it's like, "Okay, well, what did we accomplish? And of the things that we didn't accomplish, why didn't we accomplish them?" And I
That's
really
good.
appreciated that, because going back to, Serge, what you said about having a list of things to do, I think it gives you a little bit more room, if you do have, room in your schedule, your tasks, to go back to that list and be like, okay, I have time. How can I grow?
That was a fantastic manager you had, and
I
I
know.
know that doesn't happen.
Shout
Like,
out
it
Dave
does happen. I
Messelberg.
give credit to some managers, but that's a perfect example. But the other factor in it is, like, as a person working in a company, you control your career. You cannot wait for your manager or the
Yeah.
executives to really give you direction of what you should be
Own
doing.
it.
I
Own
think
it.
you own your career path.
Own your career path. Well,
Yep.
we want to hear your thoughts. Get involved in the comments here. There's some really good ones here. We appreciate everyone jumping in and adding their perspective too. But I think we have another caller coming in.
Oh. Hello, hello. Okay. We're going to wait for Tara to get swapped in. Here she is. Okay.
Let me unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Tara. Welcome to the show.
Apologies, I'm here on my phone. We had some technical difficulties, but I made it.
You made it. You made it, and you look fabulous. So it's all good. Why don't you share with the room and with the audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. I am Tara Cooper. Most people in the industry actually call me Coop, so feel free.
Ooh.
Than saying is it Tara or Tara, it's just Coop. So I am an HR tech veteran. I've been in the space for over 16 years now. I started my career really on the startup side. So I was hire number 23 at HireView, hire number
Wow.
Smashfly, and the list goes on and on. And then for a while, I actually consulted with early stage founders that were entering the industry, the HR tech space, that were outside the space and looking to get acclimated. So I've done a lot of work on the go-to-market side and that sort of thing.
Cool.
And I really have a big affinity for HR technology, especially what's disruptive. So about 2 years ago, I actually joined Mercer, who had recently acquired LeapGen. And as part of that acquisition, they wanted to build out their HR tech analyst function. So I have come in to do that. And I am proud to say that 2 years later, we have a global practice. We serve clients around the world as well as vendors around the world. And I get the great privilege of going out and nerding out on all of the technology in the space and doing primary research, and then bringing that back to the market, whether that's clients that are looking for technology and trying to navigate, or if it's vendors trying to understand where they should go next, and really helping the entire industry kind of improve, if you will.
Very, very cool. I feel like you have honestly a very sick job. So going into, obviously you help a lot of companies and you're aware of a lot of technology. I have two questions for you. You can answer them in either order, but I'm curious about like the trends of what people are interested in versus the trends of what you're seeing and what you like want people to invest more in, what you think is a smart investment versus what people are actually interested in.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think my answer is going to surprise you when I tell you people are interested in AI. It is all everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Agentic AI came on the scene later last year, and that's become more of the go-to because so many executives are pushing for productivity gains, and certainly agents that are autonomous that can go out and do tasks for you make that very, very possible.
Right.
Now, I will say I am fully in favor of investing in AI. It is the future. We're not going to escape it. So you either invest now or you start to become a laggard, right? So it is something that I agree with people investing in, but I think the problem is when we talk about investing in AI, we talk about investing in the technology, and there's so much more around this. And I wish that we could start thinking about investing in AI as not just technology, but it's investing in people. It's investing in change empowerment across your teams. It's investing in things like work redesign, because AI isn't coming in to just do crappy jobs faster. It's there to actually revolutionize what we do. So what I wish people would invest in is not actually a technology. It's in slowing down and thinking about what are we actually trying to get out of this and who are we building this for, so we can invite people into this equation with us.
I love that so much. And I'm a big advocate of not just investing in AI, but like you said, teaching people actually how to use it. Because I think people need more help. It's interesting. I was talking about sort of the generational differences the other day, and it's a little bit like expected for young people to be the ones teaching older people how to use a lot of tools, and I find that to be super fascinating. But on the other side of it, what is this like for anyone who doesn't know? What is agentic AI?
So agentic AI is AI that essentially takes a task off of your plate. So when you think about like a chat GPT or that sort of thing, those are creative AI solutions. They're meant to create outputs for you, whether that's in writing or Dolly creating pictures and things like that. But agentic AI is meant to go and do the grunt work for us. So going to look up the information that you need about your benefits to see exactly what you're enrolled in and what your coverage is and what your copay will be, and serving that back up to you, or making changes on your behalf, or agentic bots talking to other agentic bots that then get work done together. And those can be inside the same system, they can be across different systems. But this is really where we start to take we have three different types of work that we talk about. We've got hands work, which is the work that keeps us busy with our hands. We've got the heads work, which is the work that keeps our minds busy, keeps us thinking. And then there's the heart's work, which is the uniquely human work, collaborating, thinking together. Those sorts of things are how we look at this. And this agentic AI has the ability to completely or almost completely automate that hands work. It also has the ability to augment the heads work, go out and help us with data analysis and things like that. And then it allows us to free up our time for better heads work and a lot more hearts work. So that's kind of how I look at this. But you brought up something interesting, which is around generationally. Like we see young people teaching, like, I grew up with VCRs. I remember trying to teach my mom and my grandma how to use VCR, right?
Yeah.
You expect that would be the case here today with AI, but this is a level playing field, at least for this moment, because of how new it is. And you've got this mix of, you've got young people that are entering the workforce that may be very AI savvy, but how do I apply that? Because I don't know the business side of things. And so this is where a lot of organizations are thinking about, how do we actually keep the knowledge that we have through these people so that there can be a transfer of some of that technological savvy upstream and some of that savvy downstream, which then creates the optimal place for all of this to actually deliver what we need.
And closing that talent gap. I think about the case of Boeing, right? They lost a lot of knowledge when a large percentage of their older workforce retired. And I think we're seeing the downstream effects of that in real time play out for the world to see. And I think it serves as sort of a cautionary tale, in my opinion, for what happens when you don't do that knowledge transfer and you don't invest in younger talent and you don't have that talent pipeline. Are there any sort of tools that you're seeing out there address this issue? Are companies interested in solving it at all? Like, this is a very interesting topic for me personally with my own work.
Well, I mean, I think skills comes into this quite a bit, right? It's about a skills transfer. How can we get some of that knowledge together? And skills is becoming, I mean, it's been a hot topic. It's something that I think more organizations are starting to put into practice, but it comes to fruition in so many different ways. And I think the thing that we need to be cautious of is there is so much amazing technology out there for skills. I could list probably 100 different solutions that are focused on solving something very important around skills. But I'll go back to, again, I don't think it's about the technology that you choose, because you could choose the best of breed solution on the market. There are a number of them that you could put into place that have amazing capabilities, brilliant founders behind them, amazing teams. But if you don't have the culture to support this kind of cross collaborative, constantly upskilling skills type of culture, then you can't really take advantage of that. And so this is something that in the research that I've done, we're actually starting to see this skills gap, not just, be as wide as it is, but continue to widen. We see people that are uphill, like upstream executives, managers. The further up the ladder you are, the more willing you are to put in time to learn new skills, to be confident that your pay is going to increase when you advance those skills. In fact, executives are 2 times as confident that their pay will increase if they advance their skills than your everyday worker. And that's the problem. We want our leadership to advance their skills, certainly, but we want the entire workforce to do that. And that's how you get that cross collaborative participation and knowledge sharing and things like that, is when we can start to share skills, work on projects together, be together in the same room. And we're missing out on those opportunities because too many employees either don't see what's in it for them, to upskill because they aren't confident that their pay will increase. Moreover, what we're seeing is there's a direct correlation between people that believe that their manager will support them no matter what, even if it means advancing beyond their team, and the amount of time they're willing to put into learning and upskilling. So to the conversation you just had about being bored at work and wanting to upskill, I agree with you to the extent that managers are the key to this. They have to provide they have to unlock the ability for people to go out and do that. And when they do, it's a very powerful thing. People will go out and learn, they will upskill, and they'll advance, and we get all of that goodness coming together. The problem is we need that manager piece to be unlocked. And what we're seeing actually in our global talent trends is people manager enablement, helping people managers be better and upskilling them is the number one priority for HR this year because of all of it. So that's very hopeful, right? We're headed in the right direction in terms of HR seeing this is actually part of the problem. And if we're going to skills, we have to unlock managers.
I'm glad that that's being, talked about and addressed, and that's on the in the plans. I think oftentimes I hear that companies want to invest in the next generation of talent, but they're actually not willing to put their money where their mouth is. And for me personally, I was just at Transform and I was on a panel about Gen Z. And I said the thing that no one's willing to say of like, Gen Z doesn't want to be managers because management sucks. And until we solve the problem of management sucking and people feeling like they're not supported and managers feeling like they're spending too much time on the admin stuff, which I think AI can definitely help with, versus doing the hard work that you were talking about. Until that's addressed, no one's going to want to be a manager. And that's a problem, right? Because that's how organizations function. It's although it's much more flat than it used to be, we still have a level of hierarchy that's not going to go away anytime soon, at least. So I think, you're talking about a serious challenge and one that I'm excited to see addressed. I mean, I talk a lot about friendship too, and creating like close circles of mutually beneficial learning. And that could be about AI. It could be about other things too. But just getting people together to talk to each other, given that we're so polarized, we're just in our own little echo chambers all the time in our own lives. And, if you're not working with other people, you don't necessarily get out of that.
Yeah. And I think to the point about the managers, I mean, too often what we've done is we've taken people that are really good at their job as an individual contributor and promoted them to a manager. Some of them are very qualified to be managers and could be amazing managers, but they aren't given the training, the education, the exposure, and the mentorship that they need to become really good leaders. There are others that just aren't well suited for that. And we're starting to see that be more okay, that you don't have to be a manager to get ahead. But the other piece of this is, yes, we have to empower managers, but we can't put all of the pressure on managers. We've got an entire ecosystem around us that we need to learn to lean into. And I think this is where technology can actually help uncover those connections, those mentorship opportunities, and not just put all of that onus onto the manager, because that's a big burden for a manager to carry.
100%, plus all the other things they're doing. So before I let you go, I would love to hear your, hot take on how people can adapt to the constantly changing conditions around us.
This one actually, it's a great question. This is very near and dear to my heart. So I am recently off of medical leave. I just had a total hip replacement.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Exactly what to expect because I had a hip replacement 2 years ago. So old hat, right? I know exactly what I'm having to do. And the conditions changed while I was in the middle of the game. And that happens sometimes. So I ended up with a complication, having trouble lifting my foot. It's a nerve.
Wow.
And so I wrote about this on LinkedIn. And one of the things that really came to mind as I started to go through this is exactly what we face in business every day. We think we're going in this direction. We think we know what to expect. We have these well-made plans, and they get disrupted by conditions that may be completely outside of our control. We're talking to a lot of businesses that are feeling that around the globe right now. We've had a year of a ton of different elections, new regulations, all of these different pieces that are moving for everyone, and a lot of hot ticket items that are very, very personal as well that leaders are trying to navigate across their teams. And I think that the thing that's important to understand about this is we are incredibly adaptable. People are adaptable, and we get set in our ways thinking, oh, this is the way I've always done it. And this is the same with AI. I've always done it this way. Yeah, I could put AI and just do it the way I've always done it faster. Or we could take a pause and think about how can we actually rewire for maybe even a better future.
Yeah.
And think about what's possible in front of us instead of what is now impossible because of these conditions that have changed. So when we talk to our clients about tech and enabling new tech, deploying new technology, the very first thing that we start with, first and always, is mindset. You have to have the right mindset coming into this. And this is why I talk a lot about culture being part of what enables tech to be successful. It's the mindset, not just of you, but of all of those around you. I'm lucky to have a community that supports me, that is helping me to rewire my brain to do the things that my body can't do right now. This is true for all of us. We're capable of rewiring ourselves to be able to learn AI, to think about new ways of working, and to challenge ourselves in new ways. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but mindset is absolutely first and foremost.
I love that. And it's such a good testament to the fact of when you take a step back from work, it can actually help you be better at your job. So thank you for sharing that story. Before you go, I'd love for us to be able to producers. Can you highlight that comment is training workshop in a training workshop learning mention as well as that one. But also, where can people find you?
Well, I am on LinkedIn, so absolutely follow me there. That's where you'll see my posts and all of the latest research. And then you will also hopefully see some new research coming from me soon that I'll be sharing. We actually have a new report coming out in the next month or so, the HR confidence check, to see how people are feeling about their tech, where they're spending their money, all of those fun things and more. So just follow me and you'll be able to catch up on all of that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Coop, and we'll see you hopefully back again soon.
Thank you.
And happy healing.
Thanks.
David, how you doing?
I'm doing well. The sun is shining in Seattle, so that's a good day.
That is a good sign. Well, welcome to the show. As we were waiting for this segment, I was going through the notes here. I'm like, this is an interesting gentleman that I'm about to speak to. So before I get into it, tell us who you are and what you do best.
Well, Dave Ellingson, I am an older person. Let me start with that as a source of pride.
We don't see age here on the show, man.
Well, but that's a part of the journey and part of my
wisdom.
Story. I'm on my last birthday, celebrated my 77th birthday, and I'm going strong. And I would say in this chapter of my life, I've become known as the Paddle Pilgrim.
The Paddle Pilgrim. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, that means that I ran for years, wore out my knees, and now I'm an expedition kayaker. And I've kayaked the Mekong River in Southeast Asia, the Mississippi River in the U.S. And out of my adventures, I write books, produce films, podcast, and have a lot of fun.
Let's pause on that for a second here. I'm going to go off course for a moment. I was on a flight back the other day from Vegas, and I wasn't interested in the movies that were on there, so I went to the documentary section. And there's a cool newsletter that's out there. It's called Atlas Obscura, and they tried to produce a couple of shows out there. And the gentleman that does the show, hosts it, he was on a kayak in the Coney Island Inlet, which is literally, I grew up in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn here. It's an area that I never knew. It was kind of this graveyard for these kind of abandoned boats and other things. And there's a submarine that sits there in the harbor. A freaking homemade submarine. This guy, who was a shipbuilder in the 50s, built his own submarine, but the only way you could access it was with a kayak. So the guy blew up the kayak and he went out there. What was one of the craziest things that you have encountered? Let's talk about one. Let's talk about the Mekong River, right? Tell us one real kind of quick, crazy story that you weren't expecting. I mean, you have to be prepared for anything. It could be animals, snakes, local natives. Like, what was it?
Well, it was interesting. As we started in Laos, went through Cambodia, ended up in Vietnam in the Delta, which of course, 50 years ago was some of the fiercest fighting in the Vietnam War, which I protested, and I was kind of reliving in my mind what is it like down there now. And what I found out, interestingly enough, we were stopped by the police, as we were going down the river. Several friends and I are kayaking, and they said it's not safe for you. So I had to do some research, and I found out that at night there is sand mining going on.
What does that
That
mean?
there are illegal operations to mine sand. Now, why would you mine sand? You mine it because it's a basic ingredient in construction, concrete, building. Who would want sand? Well, who are the major builders in much of the developing world and in Vietnam? The Chinese. And they, through proxies, are mining during the night sand. Well, it turns out my research ultimately led me to find out that the local government official, who, of course, is a part of the Communist Party, was in cahoots with the Chinese to mine sand and grift a little on the side. And so the story was our safety. But what would have happened if we had continued paddling down is we would have run into this illegal operation.
This barge in the middle of the river at night. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm telling the story now, even though someone doesn't want me telling the story.
That is fascinating. But is it this constant need for adventure? I mean, what else out there is for you to prove? I mean, what or are these like bucket list items for you?
Well, I guess it's intrinsic for me. When I'm on the water, when I'm paddling, I'm close to nature. I'm testing my physical limits. It's a form of meditation for me when I'm paddling. So there's so many elements of kayaking, paddling, meeting people along the way. I call them river angels. I mean, people, I have no idea who they are, but invariably they help you, whether I'm on the Mississippi or back in New York. You talked about New York. I lived in Dobbs Ferry as a kid. And my dad worked in Manhattan, and my uncle taught at the University of Syracuse. So one of my dreams, I don't know if you know the song, Low Bridge, Everybody Down.
Not familiar with that. Not familiar with that one.
Well, it's the Erie Canal song. So I paddled the Erie Canal.
And I went to school up in Buffalo. I never heard that one.
Oh, come on. Maybe
I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, well, you paddle the Erie Canal through all the locks, down the Hudson River to the Statue of Liberty, and I met all these amazing people on the adventure. So a lot of it is just meeting amazing people and hearing their stories.
That's all part of the adventure. And you put it together in this book called Paddle Pilgrim. Tell us a little bit about the book. What's it all about? Who's it for?
Well, actually, since I retired, I don't like the term retirement. I'm my third act. So I'm in my third act. And I've actually written 10 books in the last 10 years. So an adventure a year, I write books, and then I have experience in video production. So I've done several award-winning films on my adventures. The books have three elements. One, lots of pictures. I'm an award-winning photographer. So
we need to see pictures. I mean, these adventures warrant the pictures.
Well, and then secondly, I tell it's Thursday, I'm in Buffalo, or Thursday, I'm in Weedsport along the canal. So for the left brain people, they'll know what's going on, the travelogue. And then the most important part for me is there's pictures, there's paddling, and there's pondering. It's like, what's going on beneath the surface? What am I learning? What is transformative in my life? Because I'm on the water meeting these people, freezing my butt off. When I was in the Mississippi, it was 115 degrees down in Arkansas. You know, what am I learning? So those are the elements in my books, and they've had a great readership.
Well, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but what's something new that you've learned that's really kind of transformed the direction of your life at this chapter?
An old dog, new tricks. Well, that age is, well, I shouldn't say it's a myth or it's in your mind, because my body, I had hip replacement surgery.
Seems like a theme of the show today. Our past guest has had hips.
I'm wearing out body parts, but
well, you're irreplaceable these days.
My mind, I'm still a junior high kid. That I think, if we use our imagination, if we're constantly learning, and my adventures allow me to experience new things and keep young at spirit.
I absolutely love it. So we could continue this conversation for a long time, but I have a couple of questions for you. What is the next adventure on your list, David?
That's a good question. Either paddling the Nile River from the dam and Valley of the Kings near Luxor to the Mediterranean.
Wow.
Right? Either that, or, and more likely, I'm going to do a different adventure when this hip is completely in good shape. I'm going to bicycle from the headwaters of the Mississippi to New Orleans. And I'm gonna morph from the paddle pilgrim into the pedal pilgrim.
You are inspiring. You're absolutely. So leave everyone out there with some sage advice here. I mean, this is a show about, careers and professional journeys and all that kind of fun stuff. But what is that greatest piece of professional advice that you've received that you take action daily or you want to bestow to our audience here?
I think at the heart of every kind of job or any kind of work, or I would like to think your vocation, your calling. Frederick Buechner, the great writer, says your calling is the intersection of your deepest longing and the world's greatest need. Deepest longing and the world's greatest need. And to do that, you have to be open to the change. You have to use your imagination. That never ends.
Always.
So imagine and create that bucket list, not just vocationally in your work, but your avocational kinds of parts of your life. What will renew my spirit? What will give me energy? And help me to grow, whether we're in our mid-20s or 30s or 40s or later 70s.
I dig it. So, David, where can folks find you? Where could they connect? Where could they learn more? Where could they get the book?
Probably the easiest way is at my website, paddle-pilgrim.com. They can see the videos, they can listen to the podcasts, they can see the books, and I'm happy to engage in people who are planning adventures.
Yes,
I've been doing this for a while now, so people will email me or call me and say, I'm going to do this adventure. What? So I consult. I tell people some of the wisdom I've learned and encourage them to go on their adventures.
Well, David, you are an inspiration, and we could certainly talk for hours. I'm sure you have so many stories that you want to share. Maybe we'll make this a segment, get him on here every couple of months and just talk about his adventures. David, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us on the HR Morning Show. We appreciate you, and safe travels and safe adventures out there, my friend.
Thanks. Great to be a part of the show. Have a great day.
Take care. Well, before we sign off, that was exciting. I feel like we could just do a whole show.
Cool.
Right?
I loved it.
I feel like we could just keep going on that one. I had so many questions, but
I want to hear about all the adventures.
Well, that's what I said. We're gonna talk to our friend Evan and maybe get Dave back on here and switch it up, because I think it's exciting to have a little bit of the human interest side to folks, later on in their careers who are doing fun things there. So we want to thank everyone for joining us today, but we'd be remiss if we didn't thank our friends over at ERIN. And Snappy and ERIN have partnered to supercharge employee referrals with meaningful gifting. So we're gonna link that up there. I think we have a code or something coming up there. And ERIN is also thrilled to announce Snappy's new integration with ERIN, which will make it easier than ever to recognize and reward employees. Thanking, sharing means caring, so certainly check it out. And employee referrals are one of the most powerful hiring tools, and now HR teams can seamlessly incentivize referrals by boosting engagement, retention, and company culture. So we want to thank our friends over at ERIN. You can head over to erinapp.com. We appreciate you, and we want to thank all of our guests, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Remember, go over to Purple Acorn on LinkedIn. Follow us. We're going to hit that 2,000 mark pretty soon. Head over to purpleacorn.network.com. We're a podcast. Find us on Spotify. All the links out there. We want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Serge.
Thank you. Comment section today.
Yes, we love it. We love it.
Great show.
We will be back next Tuesday. I think we'll have the whole crew there. Some kind of amalgamation of what we got going on here. But if you like this, sharing means caring. Tell your friends about us. We want to thank everyone out there. Have a great day. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next Tuesday on the HR Morning Show. Bye, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.